It very well could be that I'm feeling the way that I am just because this is the newest content, it's the freshest on my mind, but I truly think this might be maybe even top 3 favorite episodes for me. Definitely one of my favorite scenes of all time for My Hero Academia for sure, but I thought this was an exceptional episode. You have to give major props to both the visual directing and how they were framing shots, really getting a pretty damn disturbing atmosphere down exceptionally well, but the thing that caught me off guard the most was the sound direction and how unnerved it made me, especially in the first third of this episode. That shakedown where, what do you do? Where you have a little girl begging and she clearly doesn't want to go back to the man that you're hunting down, but you have to make it so it doesn't look like you know who he is so you can lure him out at the proper moment. That was one of the best scenes I've seen in My Hero Academia to date. Combined with that and then the whole Deku and All Might confrontation, this episode was exceptionally well done, without a doubt. One of my favorite kind of like debates or topics that get brought up is who should have received All Might's ability. Logically, you can look at Togata and say, well, he was the obvious choice, and you can definitely see that he already feels like a hero. And then you kind of look at the quirkless Deku, and emotionally, he kind of seems like he matches up with All Might the best. And what I loved with this scene in general was, even though it was so painful and I didn't know what should happen there, logically I knew they should probably back off, but emotionally I was like, this is a little girl crying for her life. What I love, especially when you see the back half of the episode, is how it really does highlight, even if logically Deku wasn't the right choice, emotionally he absolutely was. This is something that, should you have put All Might in this situation, even if All Might knew logically he would get killed should he try to protect this girl, I don't think All Might would have backed off. Because what happens in this episode later is that even after a future vision saying, if you pursue this, you will die, let someone else become your successor, he didn't back down because the people of right now need my help, and even if that will get me killed and will leave them with no symbol of peace, this is who I am. And that's exactly who Deku is. And that's what I really like, is that it's this kind of battle of logical versus emotional, and I don't think there's a correct outcome there. I think it really does depend on person to person, but I can't fault Deku for calling it out, because he literally has a shaking, crying child not wanting to go back, and clearly has been emotionally and physically abused more than anything. Logically, yes, he would have died, Togata would have died, and it would have done more harm than good, but you have to put yourself in their situation there, and even though Togata could be the bigger man there and realize like he has to back off, I don't think either one of them was truly in the right or wrong, and that entire situation playing out was completely unnerving, especially because it was in broad daylight, yet the way the directing went about it, the shot composition, the sound effects, and the dramatic zooming, it almost felt like one of the most unnerving and atmospheric scenes that we have seen in My Hero Academia. There was just something so chilling because not only are you watching the scene play out, and because we have the bird's eye view, we know what everything is going on here, we know exactly what should happen logically, but then we got the whole emotional angle. But I love how, for 8 minutes, give or take, they just kept on pushing it, and you felt like it was all going to go down. And I love that. I love how it was just, I didn't know what I wanted to happen, because logically I knew, should Deku try to run with this child, he would end up dead, or Togata would have ended up dead, but it's like, can you really abandon a child in that situation, especially if you want to call yourself a hero? Maybe you could have went and got Night Eye or something, but it's like, that is such a horrifying scene. And the fact that he was playing it off as he was just a father and, you know, childs get a little out there, let me explain my family, you know, it's just sometimes she just gets under my skin. You got Togata being like, oh, families, right? They all have their different ways of dealing with troublemakers, and then you have someone who is so scared knowing what he wants to do versus what he has to do, and it's like, that was so well done. I especially like the little details early on into that little debate going on there where you have Togata put on Deku's hood, because the whole idea of mask is so it can not only hide your emotions but hide your identity. And for someone like Togata, he was stone cold there, right? Like in his head, he was like, don't do this, I'm kind of freaking out. But he looked like someone who didn't look at him as a villain, where Deku was shitting his pants. And I love that little detail, because if you take most of the viewers watching, they would have been shaken in fear the same way Deku was, especially when you see how much Deku cares for people in general. And that's a element to a character that can generally go very, very wrong especially in most shonen authors' hands. But something that I've always really appreciated, especially from like season 2 onwards with Deku, is how he is someone who doesn't come across as some cliche wants to help everyone. He really does feel like a future hero. Should he live, should he excel with his ability, he really could become the next All Might in his own way, because he really does invoke this sense of he will help you, and if he has the abilities to back up what he's saying, he definitely would become someone as identical to All Might in his own way that could invoke that sense of he always smiles or he always makes people believe that things will be okay. And I really like that in this episode in particular, because I think a lot of what I was feeling was it almost put me in this girl's perspective, as if, do not leave, I am going to get verbally, mentally, physically abused to the point that I may not make it out alive, especially seen by she tried running away, and I imagine that's not going to go over too well for her. And I love that. I love how just shook I was, and that scene was incredible, especially seen by how it really does kind of link up to what happens in the back half of the episode, where we learn exactly why All Might was keeping secrets and why there's this wedge between Night Eye and himself. And I think the idea of a fanboy, someone who was such a fan that got the chance to work alongside his idol, has the ability to see into the future, watches his partner, his best friend, his everything and idol breaking himself, so he looks into the future and realizes he's going to die should he keep on this path. But like with Deku, it doesn't matter if it will get him killed, he has to help the people right then and now. And I was really curious the most to see what ultimately was the reason why he stopped looking at Togata and went with Deku. Like, we knew about the meetup and all that with season 1, but what ultimately made him just decide, instead, no, I don't want this already amazing kid. And the fact that, on his way basically to kind of meet up and kind of look at him and say, okay, yeah, I guess Night Eye has a point here. I love that he met Deku and he was exactly what he believed in. Not someone who logically makes sense or logically was the right choice, but someone who had the spirit that he had. And that's something that will rile some people up and say, it shouldn't have been Deku. Even if they like Deku, there was a more logical choice. Deku shouldn't have lashed out. But both him and All Might have something very in common. They want to help the people of the present, even if it may not make sense, even if it is a stupid decision, even if it will get them killed. They want to help people, even if it will cost them their life. It's just something that was incredible to watch play out, and just to see the idea of fate and how it was incorporated, because apparently there's never been a vision that hasn't gone to what he saw. And even though the farther in the future, the less accurate it can be, it seems like All Might is going to die. Everyone dies, right? But it's like the idea of getting that thrown into your face that within a year, within 2 years, you're going to die, and the idea of wanting to twist it so you want to continue living, I think is something that it could be a 50-50 split. He easily could still die, or he could easily survive, but it doesn't feel all that important. What really feels important is the present, and how not only is All Might trying to live, training his body, he wants to continue on to see not only his successors' dreams come to fruition, he also wants to honor what Deku's mother asked him and to train him and to protect him, and Deku's going to do the same for him and make sure that they find some way. And even if they can't find a way, it's like that bond really does matter, and it's way more than just, teacher-student things like that. And it really does almost bring a tear to your eye. I love that direction. Not only was it unnerving in the first part of the episode, the way they directed, and just, there was some interesting shots in this episode, I have to say, especially just All Might facing away from Deku, and just they're warping perspective in an interesting way instead of just having it, we're looking at them from the side. There were some back angles and things like that. Just a lot of really interesting shots, and with the lighting, it was beautiful, but also a little depressing. And I think this episode kind of flexes just how passionate of a project this really is. It's not just like a yearly project for Studio Bones. It really does feel like they enjoy the source material, and with each season, they're getting progressively better with adapting that material and bringing out such perfect atmosphere, whether it's something comfy, whether it's something dramatic, and you really do have to give major props. This is like the biggest reason why I don't need to read the manga, because every year I know there's going to be something quality such as this, where visually, audio-wise, and just everything about it, it feels like it's not a product to be consumed. It's a piece of art you're basking, and you're like, this is what a lot of adaptation should aim to be. Not only quality, but passionate quality. And it really does show. I'm just kind of taken back by not only what we've seen so far with this season, but this episode was just everything. It really made me feel a variety of emotions, and it's a new feeling for My Hero Academia for me. Like, I felt different emotions watching My Hero Academia, but it's a mixture of feelings of both regret and sorrow and happiness and despair. It's a lot of different things wrapped up because of what we saw. But I think the thing that really got me in this episode, especially with how it ends, ignoring the after the credits scene, of course, with meeting up villain on villain, it was hope. It kind of feels like the entire point of this episode was hope, whether it's a little girl hoping that these people can save her even though she abandons it because he starts letting off this killing aura. Or it's the hope between All Might and Deku and vice versa, and how they give each other that hope. Even if logically it doesn't make sense, sometimes I think what people need the most is hope. And that's what both Deku and All Might have always represented. And I think that's why someone like Night Eye and All Might ultimately had to have a falling out, because there's this logical, I see the future, this is what's going to happen. And then there's the hope of the people of the present. And that's really, really solid character writing and storytelling overall. And it just brings a smile to my face. And I have to say, My Hero Academia, once again proving it's not just some shonen of the season, it's damn good with his character writing more often than not. What did everyone think, either from manga readers or anime originals like myself? Did this episode grip you like it did for me? Because I'm expecting it did for quite a many. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And if you did enjoy, be sure to drop a like and also hit that subscribe button if you have any news. So until next time, everyone, please take care, have a good one.